Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
That's right, streaming live across the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the world on this, or across the state of Alaska, I guess, on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Hi, how are ya? How are things going? How are you doing? Are you all rest and rejuvenated from the weekend? Did you get any time off at all? Did you take any time to? I mean, yeah. And then did daylight savings time catch you? I knew about it on Thursday. I knew about it on Friday, but it wasn't until mid-morning on Sunday that I'm like, oh man, I'm beat. What the heck is good? Oh, why is the clock on the microwave wrong? Oh, I remember now. He sprung forward. It was, because I drug myself out of bed on Sunday morning. It was like, I'm tired, but I feel like I need to get up because the clock says I should get up. And here we are, getting ready to do it and into it. Oh man, a daylight savings time stuff. It's not fun, but here we are, bright and early. It's 5:08 a.m. Really, it's 5:00, but it's 6:08. So, don't get confused here. Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us, the Michael Dukes Show. We're going a little bit old school today. I don't have any guests lined up for the program, and so we're going to let you steer the bus, as it were, and help us with topics and discussions and everything else. It is open line, open forum today, which is unusual. Normally we save that for later in the week for an hour, but today we're just, I didn't have anything lined up on Friday, and I thought about it over the weekend, and I thought, why not let's just go to the phones and see what you guys want to talk about, because there's plenty of things that we can discuss, plenty of things that are happening out there in the world that I'm sure that you guys would love to, sound off about and pontificate on, I guess I should say, as we go through. So we're going to open up the phone lines here in just a few minutes and get your calls and your thoughts and talk to you about the things that are worth talking about. We're also going to, we got some stuff lined up later in the week. Obviously, tomorrow is going to be Brad Keithley and Chris Story. There are weekly guests on Tuesday. Tuesday's usually pretty much all taken care of. Mike Shower will probably be with us on Thursday this week instead of Wednesday. And we're working on a couple other guests for more discussion on ranked choice voting and what's going on in the legislature as well. So it's kind of the direction that we're going to take today and for the remainder of this week. We're also going to talk about the new bills that are going on in the legislature, including this new bill that was initially put forward by Matt Claman to soften up the marriage, the legalities of marriage, to reduce the number of witnesses down to one, I guess, from two. But it got a surprise amendment from Representative Sarah Rasmussen along the way that would also outlaw marriages for folks under the age of 16 here in the state of Alaska, which I wouldn't have thought would be apparently as big a deal as it is. Apparently, it actually affects a significant number of the marriages that happen here in the state of Alaska. We can talk about that. We could talk about the state's gas tax. We could talk about what's going on with COVID and where COVID is going and, what's happening this last year and where we go from here. And then also, we're going to talk about schools too, which I got some things to say that I'm sure will not be popular, and I'm okay with that. I am totally okay with what I'm going to say today on education because I think it's, well, first of all, the reporting on it has just not been great. It's just not been groovy. It's not been, anyway, there's all kinds of things that are going on, things that we can talk about and more. So I've got the list of headlines, which we will dive into here in just a few moments. I guess we'll go ahead and open up the phone lines. The Pivotel call-in lines powered by our friends at Pivotel and Satellite West at 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150 if you want to be part of it. And no, we're not going to talk about fluoride in the water. Brian's asking, are we going to talk about the gay frogs and the, fluoride in the water, turning the frogs gay? I don't know. I don't think we're going to go quite that far today. That's an Alex Jones reference for those of you who don't get that in the morning. It's fun. It's fun stuff. Anyway, we're going to dive into some of this, and we will we'll see where we go from here. But I guess we'll go to the phones first things first, since you guys are already calling up and want to share your thoughts on what the topic should be today. I haven't reported, by the way, yet on the things that are going down in the Ukraine. Although there's some interesting things. There are some interesting things going on in that as well, and we'll continue to. I guess we'll talk about that as we go forward and do this as well. All right, so let's go to the phones, I guess, is what I was trying to say to begin with. We'll go over to the phones and see what you guys want to say to begin with and get the ball rolling this morning. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Well, it's Murph calling from the Denali area.
Well, good morning, Murph. What's happening up there in God's country?
Just pretty awful weather for the last couple of weeks. We either have wind, snow, or cold. Really cold.
Right. It's one or the other, or a combination of all three, right?
Yep, exactly.
So what's your thoughts today, Murph? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I wanted to talk about the daylight savings time. They did a study and found out that when we do the spring forward thing, that the heart attacks increase by 25%. And I'm one of those people. I woke up Sunday morning and I thought it was 4:00, and I turned the radio on and turned it to the weather station, and it said it was 5:02, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to spring forward. But what I would like to see happen is I would like to see them go a half hour either way. Instead of having this constant flip-flopping, I would like them to, like, instead of it being a little after 6 right now, I would like to see it be a little after 5:30 and just stay with one thing, because they have proven that there is a 25% increase in heart attacks when you spring forward, and there's a slight increase on the fall back, but it's not as bad. And I would just, let's just stop with this switching the clocks all the time and just set on one time frame. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. And I want to listen to your thing on education, what you have to say about that, because I remember at one point they were talking about taking the permanent fund and applying that for education. And that just does not sit well with me, because that was the excuse that they used for the Denali Borough being formed, was we want to get the money for education and stuff. And the first thing that happened was I lost my education for my kids in the Denali Borough and had to fight for 8 years and finally have a 7-page letter saying they violated 4 Alaska statutes and 1 federal law with my youngest son on the education.
Okay.
So be wary when they start saying, oh, we need this for education. So I will now listen to what else everybody's got to say. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Murph. I appreciate it. I mean, I will say that, look, I'm in favor. I mean, I understood we were actually having this conversation this weekend, my wife and I and my kids, that maybe it's time to just do away with daylight savings time in the state of Alaska. Now, I lived in Hawaii shortly when I was younger, and Hawaii, they did away with daylight savings time, and so sometimes they're an hour behind Alaska, sometimes they're 2 hours behind Alaska. At least when I lived there, I'm assuming that they still have the same situation. So it was always kind of a thing, but it never. I don't know if putting it on the half hour would make it any easier or not, but it definitely makes some changes in our mentality and how we do it. And it does. I mean, it messes up my sleep schedule, especially the spring forward. The fall back, not so much because I can get an extra hours of sleep, but you start cutting an hour out and it does. So I don't know. And I'd love to see where this study is that it's a 25% increase in heart attacks, Murph. If you want to mail that to me, I'd love to see that because I mean, I could believe that it definitely induces more stress. More heart attacks happen on Monday anyway, statistically, than any other day of the week to begin with. And I could definitely see how raising that time frame and making it that much quicker could stress somebody out. But I think it's something that served its purpose. It made sense when we were using oil and tallow candles and everything else, and they got up when the sun rose and they went to bed when the sun set. I can understand that. But at this point, I'm thinking that daylight savings time probably not going to be a big. And there's been several bills to stop it in the legislature in the past, and they've just never really gone anywhere. And yeah, I saw that Mayor Matherly in Fairbanks, who's running for Senate, is proposing ending daylight savings time as well. But I would love to see it. I would love to see a discussion on that. But maybe we should get rid of all the other bills that are out there first. How about that? Let's go over here to the phones and start over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Mike. Jeff from Homer.
Morning, Jeff.
I've been saying since I was in high school, and I agree with Murph, it's like signing a check. There's one end to sign a check. I always said sign them in the damn middle, and nobody can make a mistake. Nobody cares. And it's about like daylight savings time. Let's just put it back a half an hour or ahead a half an hour. Split it in the middle, and then the time you won't notice it. And she's correct. She's correct. I think that's the way to do with it. Stop messing around with that. But I've been watching the oil thing. Chris, I think I talked to you about this before. The taxes on oil, they like to say, the government especially, and Biden, one of the other big reasons he did what he did to cause oil to go up is once the barrel of oil gets up, the government doesn't tell you that they charge, when it was down low at $50 a barrel or whatever it was, they were getting $2 a barrel. And it's gone up, 3 times that now? It's almost. So they're going to wind up getting $8 a barrel, millions of barrels coming in. That's why he didn't want to shut the Russians off, because he'd lose all of that income from them. That's how he's going to pay for his new Green Deal probably. That's why he's trying to say it's paid for. And as long as you keep oil up, you can pay for a lot of things and whatnot. So that's kind of a hidden thing. They like to say, well, we didn't touch anything at the pump. Our tax didn't go up there. Yes, it did. It's hidden in the barrel.
Well,
they've been doing that for years, and it's a fact.
Yeah, any pricing, more per barrel. Any price increase is going to affect you at the pump, whether it's in the tax or not. That's just going to happen. The price
Correct.
Is going to be baked into it.
But the taxes, they're paying more on per barrel. Same oil, they're getting $2. Now they're getting about $8. So there's a big increase in their tax. They're lying to you, and that's what they fund a lot of their things with and whatnot. And and people don't understand where they get all their money. Well, there's one of them, and they kind of don't even talk about it. Don't want you to know about it. But if you look it up in right places, probably can't get it off in Google anymore. Who knows? They protect everybody in that realm. But it's like unbelievable what's going on in this world right now, as far as our government. And I talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and I'll tell you a little joke here. He said, "What do you think of the the people that are running the country. He didn't say Democrats. He didn't say Republicans. And I said, well, if you took the whole lot of them, pulled all the brains out and turned it into gasoline, put it into a mini bike, you couldn't drive it around the inside of a Fruit Loop, as far as I'm concerned. So, there's not a lot of brain power out there. And, the other thing that I was watching, I think it was either Charlie Kirk, I heard it on the radio, and I'm pretty sure he's right because I've kind of forgotten about this. When Biden was vice president for Obama picked him because he knew he wasn't very well liked and he would never get impeached because the vice president would never want to be the president. So he told, I remember this, he told Biden that in the end. So what Biden do?
He picked Kamala. He picked Kamala.
And what are you hearing?
You can't impeach him.
I hope he lives, and I hope he lives. Everybody hopes he lives now after her. Nobody wants her in there. So what you do is you pick the dumbest person in the world to be a vice president, and nobody will impeach you.
Yeah.
Not even the Republicans. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's saying something when it's Joe Biden.
I think that's pretty true.
Well, it's an interesting interesting thought, Jeff. I mean, I agree. I think that I think I definitely look at this and go, while Biden's bad, Kamala would be worse. And I definitely agree that that is the case. As far as the oil taxes and goes on with $1, how many dollars per barrel and everything, I don't think we get anything off imported oil, but I know that domestic oil, the federal government will take a slice somewhere along the lines. But I think the bottom line is what we really need to be focusing on is American oil or energy independence. And because we're not doing that, it's affecting us for sure. And it's going to continue to infect us. And this is not something you could turn around on a dime. It's got to take some time to do it. We should be focusing on American energy independence. All right. We got to go. We're going to continue. Thank you, Jeff, for your call. Phone lines are open at 433-3150. It is open line, open forum today. If you want to get in the queue, now's the time to do it during the commercial break. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense.
Regularly heard on American radio.
Michael Duke Show.
Radio.
Okay. Oh, thank you for the link, Brian. Brian dropped me a link about the daylight savings times and the heart attacks. Man. Many of us don't know that daylight savings time doesn't only make you feel miserable, it also makes your body miserable. And the most dramatic example of this is the increased incidence of heart attacks in the first couple of days after the spring daylight savings time change. They conducted a study over a period of 20 years, which confirms a serious health risk happening worldwide every single year as you get ready for the spring daylight savings time. And it definitely increases significantly over the previous year. Oh, man. That's it. I'm going back to bed. I am going back to bed. Now, it also talks about Mondays is one study looked at this problem and found that working non-hospitalized people were, in fact, more likely to suffer from a heart attack on Monday. Man, I knew there was a reason to avoid Mondays. Anyway, thank you very much. Let's see. What else is going on? Daylight savings didn't work, so they added COVID. Okay. Yeah, did you see that Mike Dunleavy was on Fox News this weekend calling out the governor's green agenda? Let's see. SB 140 testimonials were brutal on Saturday. It very well could be both genders will compete together. That was the 140 is the bill that Shelley Hughes was talking about, that is the equal competition bill or something, where it prevents biological males from competing against biological females. Oh, I got to drop the link here in the chat. Somebody on YouTube wants the chat, or wants the link for the studies on daylight savings time. Okay, I just dropped that there in the chat room. I love it when we spring forward, said Terry. We get more light at the end of the day. Yeah, totally messes me up, though. I'm wandering around the house last night. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's only 5:30. It was 7:20. I mean, I was just like, I was so messed up by the and yeah, I don't know. Anyway. A study done on Indiana's time change in 2004 showed that daylight savings time also increased energy usage instead of decreased. That was the original. Ben Franklin was the one that originally suggested daylight savings time, and it was a way to help decrease the usage of, things like candles and lantern oil and everything else. And look at where we are today. Who cares about daylight savings time? Are you in a parallel universe? I mean, I'm just talking about what people want to talk about, David. Randy says it screwed him up. He missed Maria Bartiromo, and she didn't realize that's it. DST is almost as important as saving 8 cents per gallon of gas. I know. I love how they're talking about that. Now, we're going to cut the gas tax out. It's going to save you $40 a year. That's important. How much time are they going to burn up on that? $40 a year? I mean, while I appreciate any amount of savings, and if you save a little here, a little there, you're talking about real money. But seriously, 8 cents a gallon is going to save me from maybe if the city of Anchorage, I posted it the other day, I got gas the other day, $5.59 a gallon. No, 49 cents a gallon. Don't want to overstate it. $5.49 a gallon for gas. I mean, oof. Let's see. What else is going on? Main Street coverage of Ukraine is the same as mobile WMD labs and taking babies out of incubators per Iraq, yet the sheep buy it hook, line, and sinker. I don't know what you mean by that, Rosie, if you want to expand on that. Tyler says, all I know is I'm sick of being proven right now. Right now. Almost everything happening today in the U.S. has basically been predicted by most logical Americans. We've talked a lot about that for sure. There's a lot of different things. They're burning time to avoid the PFD issue. Yeah, that's pretty much it right there. Jerica. All right, we're back. The Michael Duke Show. Talking about gas prices across the country. Jerica is out in North Florida. She says $4.19 a gallon. That's cheap. Get it while you can. I'm paying $5 a gallon every time I go in when I'm in Anchorage and I fill up down there. Seems like I'm always filling up in Anchorage. I should be filling up in Wasilla, since gas is 10 cents a gallon cheaper. They got that 10 cents a gallon tax in Anchorage that they're using to fund all their stuff out there. Guess I should be getting gas in Wasilla, shouldn't I? Probably makes more sense. All right. And we were talking about how they're all getting into all these different bills. I mean, we were just talking about the marriage bill. We're talking about there's a bill out there where potentially they're going to dump the 8 cents a gallon, the 8 cents a gallon fuel tax. Governor Dunleavy and state senators said Friday that they support legislation to suspend the state's tax on motor fuels for 1 year. Which, I mean, okay, great. I'm a biggest fan, as anybody else, of reducing taxes. I think that probably makes sense. But based on the average number of miles driven per year in the state, which is about 9,000, and the average fuel economy of the American vehicle, which is like 18 miles per gallon. If 18 miles per gallon is the average, my God, how are you people getting around on vehicles that are 12 miles to the gallon? I mean, that's expensive. Anyway, suspending the fuel tax in Alaska would save the average Alaskan driver about $40 a year. So, I mean, again, while I'm all in favor of reducing taxes as best I can, because taxation is theft. Thank you very much. The $40 a year is not earth-shattering. And I wonder how much time is going to be burned up in the legislature discussing this fuel tax. I mean, if they fight about it at all, somebody in there said, Sandy said in YouTube, she said they're burning time to avoid the PFD issue. And I don't think she's necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with her. It seems like any bill that we could talk about that doesn't have to do with the PFD, that's what we should be talking about right now. So they're working on this right now. The governor has said that he supports this idea. While he won't comment on any legislation, the Alaska Senate cast a non-binding vote, kind of a resolution in support of a one-year tax holiday this last Friday, and he supported that in the same day. But I mean, $40 a year. I'm just not thinking that. I mean, again, great. Any reduction of taxes is great. Don't get me wrong. But how much time are we going to burn on that when we could be focusing on other things, right? I mean, when we could be focusing on, settling the whole PFD issue overall to begin with. Isn't that what we should be focusing on? But instead, we're the gas tax. That's important. Or the marriage thing. Now, again, I don't know how to feel about this. So this original bill came out. Matt Clayman, I guess, had introduced this bill or had championed this bill. I don't know if it was an individual bill or if it came out of committee. But it was a bill that would reduce, and I guess not remove, but I guess reduce the witness signatures on the marriage certificate. They are reducing it from 2 witness signatures on a marriage certificate to now 1. And they did that in part because there's businesses that are providing these destination weddings here in the state of Alaska. And that apparently was, although they've been trying to, I guess, remove part of this for years, there was a comment about how Clayman has been pushing this bill or a variation, I guess, of this bill. Has been going on for quite a few years. Between 1990 and 2001, according to the court system, there were that's on the other thing. But, again, I don't know how important this is. But they put the bill in. They've heard it. And then Sarah Rasmussen attached a rider, an amendment to the bill that would eliminate the ability for children under the age of 14 to get married. Current state law says that children as young as 14 can be married with the approval of a judge. And Rasmussen's amendment would raise the minimum age of marriage to 16 with parental consent. And it passed 33-3. Kirka and Eastman both voted against it, but Delana Johnson also voted against it. Why? She said sometimes it works out. Her mother was married at 14, and sometimes people become adults at a young age. And you know what? I kind of agree with that because we've seen that. But again, remember that there is a tremendous number of there's a tremendous change in the last, few decades. It used to be that people were married much younger. In fact, was that in the must read? I think the must read must have the stats. I thought it was interesting because in recent generations, people marrying at 16 was not uncommon, although 21 and 22 was more common. Today, the average age of marriage is between 25 and 30 years old. In Alaska, the average age for a woman to marry is 26, while the average age for men to marry is 28. All over the country, the rate of marriage is dropping. And you've seen the decline from more than 8 marriages per 1,000 people down to 6 marriages per 1,000 people in 2019. Now, and again, remember, they used to marry young. Back in the, westward expansion days, it was not unusual for a girl to be married at the age of 13, 14, 15. But it's a different world now. I don't know. I mean, how do I feel about this bill? I'm kind of ambivalent to it, one way or the other. Because, as Delana Johnson said, sometimes people become adults at a young age. I've seen that happen. I've met people who were old before their years, sometimes marrying at the age of 14. But again, this is her mother, so that was, 70 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago? That was a little bit of a different place around the state of Alaska here 70 years ago. So I can definitely understand that. Now, children the age of 16 could still get married. They would just need a parent's consent to do so. Interestingly enough, if you look at the statistics, the percentile of marriages from 2016 through 2020, there was at least 1,672 marriages involving at least one person between the ages of 15 and 19. Now, that's quite a wide swath, and I would say that there's a big difference between somebody getting married at 15 and 19, but that accounted for nearly 7% of all marriages during that period. So, but this is another bill that we'll get tangled up in. I mean, what is the Senate going to do with it? I have no idea. Will they pass it? I don't know. So they could get in on that. They could get in on the 8 cent a gallon fuel tax change. It's weird. I mean, I guess you just never know. It's ironic because we talk about this frequently in my household because people are like, oh, they shouldn't get married. They're too young, or these shouldn't get married. They haven't known each other long enough. And my wife and I were married. I was, we were both 20. Okay. We were both 20. But my wife and I, we moved in together in like 2 weeks. We were engaged in a month, and we were married 3 months after we met, and we've been married for over 30 years. So, I mean, I know it does work. I guess it depends on the person. Jonathan in the chat room says he and his wife married when she was 16, and they've been married for 17 years. I mean, there's all kinds of factors in there. I don't know. Again, this raises the question of why the government should be involved in whether or not I want to get married anyway. That's a private contract between two people. And why do I really care what the government thinks? I mean, I guess that's my big take, my hot take on this whole thing to begin with. I got married, said Chris, and had to use the emancipated minor law. Well, there you go. I don't know. I guess my question is, why are we worrying about all these other bills when we really should be focusing on the one thing that's important right now is getting the PFD squared away. Getting the PFD squared away and getting the state budget under control. Why aren't we worrying about that? I mean, that's insane. We're worrying about all these other bills, and yet we just can't, we just can't get into it on this other side. We can't be bothered. We'll worry about an 8 cents a gallon gas tax and whether or not you can get married at 16. And I don't even know. Lots of people in the chat room now sounding off Gordon. My wife and I are married at 19 years old each, and we're on year 36. Good for you. We're going to get there. That's life goals right there. It does happen. I mean, I love it, these people today. Oh, yeah, we've known each other for 7 years. We've been living together in 7 years, and we're going to get married here one of these days, but I hope it works out. My Lord. I knew my wife for 3 months, and we got married. Sometimes you just know, I guess, or maybe you make the decision on the front end that this is going to work out no matter what. Maybe that's what it was. We had no escape hatch. There was no, you know. Anyway. All right, we're going to continue the Michael Dukes Show. Common Sense Radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Robbie says, there were no teenagers until my generation. I mean, isn't that truth? I mean, they were young adults, right? I mean, when they hit the age of 13 or 14, they were young adults. They were no longer, and there was no such thing as teenagers. I mean, it was a different world. It was so different. Married at 18, says Laura. Baby at 19, been together 42 years. Oof, congratulations. That's what happened. Jerica says the government should not be involved in personal private relationships. Everybody is different. Every relationship is different. The important thing is that neither person is forced or coerced into marriage. Yeah. Now it's preteens, says Jonathan. The odds are good, but the goods are odd. Well, I think you could probably say that about myself. Not about my wife, but I am definitely odd. Well, I guess that would assume that I'm good at that point. Labels for everything. You get a label, and you get a label, and you get a label. Yeah, and a divorce costs you $1,000 and needs a judge permission. I remember a friend in high school had her husband sign a permission slip for a field trip, said Chris. What did the parent-teacher conference look like? That's my question. What did the parent-teacher conference look like? Oh, man. Yeah, and I guess it matters. I guess it matters what the age difference is between the two of them. I mean, versus, you know, somebody makes a comment, or there's a must have been in the Must Read article. There was a discussion about one of the divorces of ages 15. That one of them was 15 years old, and it divorced somebody who was 55. That's kind of creepy. That raises the creep factor. Maybe it was in the maybe that was in the ADN article. But yeah, I mean, at that point you're like, ew. I mean, ew. Oh, there you go. Between 2006 and 2015, the state recorded 8 divorces involving people younger than 15. In one of those cases, the teen spouse was at least 55 years old. Ew. I mean, that doesn't fly in that case. 15 and 20, maybe. 15 and 55, yeah. I mean, what do you even have in common at that point? That reminds me of the old line of When Harry Met Sally, right? When he said, you know, he was dating a younger woman and, you know, asked her where she was when Kennedy was shot. And she said, Ted Kennedy was shot? You know, I mean, it just, at that point, what do you have to talk about? All right. Let's see. You don't want child brides. No. Marriages or contracts used to secure an alliance with France. There are limits of everything, of course. Age matters. At some point, there's a line between early marriage and pedophilia. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that all matters at that point. But I guess we're losing the point here of my major thrust on this whole thing, which was, why are we focusing on this instead of focusing on the important stuff like, you know, fixing the issue of the PFD and, you know, fixing the issue of state spending? Why are we getting all subsumed by all this other stuff? That's the thrust of this whole argument. Is like, okay, great, we're going to fix the marriage. We're going to fix the gas tax. Great. You know, we're going to get the Alaska flag song another stanza. We're going to rename the Glenn Highway. Okay, great. But what does that do for our fight and the battle that continues to rage over the PFD? What does it matter? That's the thing. That's what's killing me. Okay, phone lines are open, 433-3150, the Pivotel call-in line. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Feel free to dial in and tell us what your thoughts are or what's going on inside your head. We would love to hear what you guys have to say. Feel free to give us a ring and talk about it. Don't forget to like and share this video. Don't forget to like and follow the show page. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, rather. And ring the bell on YouTube. Bread and circuses, says Brian. That's pretty much it right there, isn't it? That's pretty much what it's all about. We'll lead off with that here as we kick things off. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Again, like and share. Get more Alaskans involved in this conversation, and let's do it. So, bread and circuses, I guess that was my whole point. I didn't mean to lose the point in the middle of all that as we digressed into discussions on this whole thing on marriages. But really, I mean, how much of this is bread and circuses? I mean, renaming the Glenn Highway. That's important. This $40 a year savings in a fuel tax suspension. Changing the marriage date, age and all this kind of stuff. I mean, anything to avoid the PFD discussion. That's what's going on. And we've had, how many special sessions have we had? I mean, not that, again, if we started focusing on the PFD, it would go anywhere. Because, again, how many special sessions have we had that were focused specifically on the budget and the PFD? What do we have, 4 special sessions last year with 2 of them almost completely dedicated to the PFD issue? I mean, at that point, you're like, whoa. And I don't know. I didn't know this was true. I did not see the fiscal note on the Glenn Highway renaming. It has a $6 million price tag? What? I mean, don't we have better things to do than spend $6 million renaming a highway? I didn't see the fiscal note, but that's what somebody in the chat room here is saying. $6 million. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, who cares if it's called the Glen or the Highway to Hell? I mean, who cares what it's called? We're gonna spend $6 million on state money, or $3 million, or $1 million of state money, whatever it is, to rename a highway. Who cares? Well, that's some earth-shattering work there, Senator Revak. That's some earth-shattering work. I mean, what about the PFD? What about the state budget? What about getting us back on track? What about being sustainable? I mean, really? And then we come to education. Oh, my God. I'm reading this story. It's from Ira Samuels in the ADN. And my blood literally starts shooting from my eyeballs about the first sentence into the story. Let me read this. Here's what it starts out with. After 7 years with no increases to Alaska's public education funding formula, schools across the state are facing difficult decisions as they balance increasingly tight budgets. Now, it's not until later in the story, because the way that's written and the way most people will read through that, 7 years without any increased education funding? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. No increases to education fund. Now, let me reread the sentence to you. After 7 years with no increases to Alaska's public education funding formula, schools across the state are facing difficult decisions as they balance increasingly tight budgets. So, but again, remember, they're not going to see the whole part about the education funding formula. In Juneau, class sizes have gone up and 2 of 4 middle school counselor positions serving about 1,000 students have been eliminated. In the Alaska Gateway School District in the eastern interior, they've installed energy-efficient windows and applied for solar heating grant. And in Fairbanks, the district is closing 3 elementary schools and cutting 121 positions, more than 7% of the positions in the district. You know what they don't talk about anywhere in this article? Let me just scan it to make sure that I didn't miss it. I just want to make sure that I'm going to scan the article before I say something that's completely inaccurate. But, yeah, see, I don't see them mentioning anywhere in this article. I'm scanning through it as we speak. I just want to make sure that I'm not. No, doesn't look like it. Doesn't. Okay. So I don't see them mentioning anywhere in this article about the number of students, about student enrollment. Enroll. Nope. Student. Okay, student. I'm just searching for the word student to make sure that, yep. Okay. Yep. Nope. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't talking out of school here. Nowhere in this article does it talk about the lack of students that these school districts are facing. Many of these school districts have seen a decrease in the double digits, a decrease in the student population in the double digits, anywhere from 8 to 12% reduction in the number of students. There is a mass exodus going on in the school system, still happening to this day. Homeschooling systems are bursting at the seams. People are sick and tired of the on again, off again, and with the COVID stuff and not knowing whether your daycare is going to be there or this or that, or whether the school is going to be open or closed. Many people just went, well, we're just going to do it ourselves. There is not a single mention in this article, which is essentially a whining cry piece about how we need to really increase our. If you care about the children, you will put more money in schools. It's not throwing money at anything. It just makes sure that we can continue. It does not mention a single thing about the loss of the number of students in the school district. Fairbanks, the district is closing 3 elementary schools, cutting 121 positions, more than 7% of the positions in the district, which I think is probably appropriate because I think, if I remember correctly, Fairbanks has lost something like 9% of its overall student population. Somebody check me in the chat room. If somebody's been following this, I think it was Fairbanks. It was 8-point-something%, I think, last time I checked. But here we are. And now they're talking about they haven't had an increase in 7 years on the funding formula. But that doesn't count. It does. You got to get down into like the way down in the article before they're like, well, yeah, I mean, they did give them $20 million here, and they did give them $40 million there, and they did give them $50 million this year. I mean, they did do that. But that's just one-time relief. We need something baked in so that we don't have to fight over it, so that we don't have to compete with the rest of all the state spending out there. We need this now, and don't you dare put limitations on it. What was the snarky comment? I read it as snarky. It probably wasn't meant as snarky, but it was something about where we were putting, where the Republicans wanted like an achievement thing on it. Like, you've got to do better because we suck. Because we suck at scholastic achievement. Like, we are the last in the nation on reading. and we're like in the bottom 3 or 4 in math. And then one of the superintendents is quoted as saying, "Well, you know, we have really good work to do to increase some of our achievement scores, but to embrace the notion that prove it first and we'll give you resources is really an upside down way to think. No, what we want is some guarantees that you're going to make some changes, not that you're just going to keep putting money into the same thing that's failing as we are." That's the thing. Nobody is willing to say that the system is broken. I am. I've been saying it for years. It's why I homeschooled my kids. The system is fundamentally flawed. Nobody's willing to say it. And yes, you are just throwing more money at it. All right, we gotta take some calls here real quick before we run out of daylight. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Well, good morning, Mike. This is Mark calling from the interior. I think you're right, and you're to be commended for your homeschooling choices. The people in the state of Alaska should be commended for those that have taken their kids out of schools. There is a mass poisoning program going on, and you need to come to terms with that mentally. There's some very wicked people in control of the system, and this has been evidence in the public school for some time. They dumbed down Alaskans so bad we didn't even know about our own 90% provision, and then they swiped that. And they're swiping the PFD. There's no real representation in Juneau outside of those dedicated few. And the shot program that's cloaked as a vaccine, it's diabolical.
Yeah.
It disarms your system, subjects you to all kinds of diseases, external, internal, and then it has a toxic twin that reorders your DNA totally.
Well, I mean, look, we don't even have to get into the whole DNA and COVID thing. We could be talking about all the problems that are going on just scholastically, let alone, like you said, not even teaching us our own history and what we're owed and what's due to us. I mean, I think that's big enough to fight about right now. All right, the Michael Duke Show. We got to continue here. Hour 2 is dead ahead. It is open line, open forum. If you want to get in the queue, 433-3150 on the Pivotel call-in line, 433-3150. We continue with more right after this. Oh, I mean, yeah, I just don't even. Ivy Sponholz claims we need to increase the base allocation because schools in other states are passing us up academically because of the programs implemented in their states. Currently, we're at the top of the list in spending, so those other states are exceeding our academic levels while spending less money. Exactly, and yet they continue to fight back on these things like the Read by 9 program, which is modeled after the one in Florida, which has a great track record. But they'll fight back against that because they don't want to spend money on that. They want it to be baked into the student. They want the monies for the school systems baked in. I mean, I've been fighting about this for years. I'm so tired of watching this stuff go on where the people are, we're mean. You must hate children. I love children. That's why I think we need to acknowledge that what we're doing is not working. I mean, the school system during the COVID, it totally failed the students and the parents. The students are the more important part of that equation. They totally failed the students and the parents. And as I've said many times, the one silver lining to the COVID pandemic is that parents all of a sudden started to understand that the schooling that they were receiving was A, not top notch, and B, they weren't really there for the students, and C, that they could do it themselves. Many of them figured out that homeschooling was not the big scary boogeyman that everybody, made it out to be. We had several listeners in late 2020 who told me in the show, in the chat room, in a private message, in emails, that they had taken up homeschooling their children, and their children were thriving. In fact, one of them said, and this was before Christmas, they said they finished the whole school year already. They finished everything. They excelled. They got the whole school year done in the first semester. Well, you know why that is? Because that didn't have to be taught at the rate of the slowest learner, right? The teachers in these school systems, they have to go at the rate of the slowest student. If your child is gifted or can grasp some of these concepts faster than the other kids, then they're basically held back because of that, because they have to teach at the speed of the slowest student. I mean, this is insane. We're seeing successes in all these other areas, but we keep going back to the old broken model that this is the only way to get it done. And it's the very definition of insanity. Stats show that homeschooling is more successful than any other form of schooling in all areas. Yes. Stats also show that homeschooling is on the increase. Yes. We pulled both of our kiddos, and they're both doing better and are happier kids. I think many people have been bamboozled into thinking prior to COVID that homeschooling was, the devil, that it was so hard and it was only the weirdo wackos that wanted to not put their kids in school and all these other things. And then people started teaching their own kids, whether it was through a group co-op, whether it was through some kind of pandemic pod or charter school or homeschooling directly, one of the homeschooling systems in the state. And all of a sudden they're like, well, this isn't hard and my kids are happy. And wow. It was crazy. It's crazy. All right. Phone lines are open. I could get really spun up about this. I'm trying not to get too spun up because at some point I just basically said I'm done fighting everybody because nobody else really wanted to fight this. I was highlighting school systems. I was highlighting homeschooling systems. We were teaching our own kids, doing what we needed to do because I figured that was the thing. And then the pandemic came along, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, wow, maybe this brick and mortar thing doesn't make sense. And I said, yes, maybe they get it. And yet still we see this kind of crap. Oh, it's been 7 years since the costs are not going down. Well, that's because you're doing it by the old system. You have all these brick and mortar schools. You have all this stuff. Some of the kids, yes, you're right. Some of the kids didn't do well with remote learning. Some kids need to have that structure of brick and mortar. I understand that, but not all of them. Why don't we find a means test to find the kids that can do well in the remote learning? Why don't we find the means test in the parents who are willing to take over the schooling of their own kids and then school the ones in the brick and mortar that need to be schooled there? The costs would be much lower. Each child has a different learning style, right? I had 5 kids, and each one of them had a different learning style that we had to adapt to and learn to. Remember, heart attacks more frequent on Mondays, so not getting spun up is smart. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Jimmy says, my 11-year-old has this thing for Irish history. We allow them to pick the subject. Amazing what we can what humans can do as if allowed. Yeah, that's called unit study, where the child has something that they want to learn, and you just let them go whole hog on it, and you learn about it from, if a kid loves octopuses or something, you learn about everything from oceanography to biology to everything else that's all built up around that. You can learn everything. There's so many different things you can learn. All right. Here I am. This is me trying not to get spun up about it. That means you got to call to keep me calm. Call to get me calm. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Hour 2 dead ahead, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the interwebs. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Welcome back to the program, hour 2 of the big radio show. And we were doing something a little different today. Normally I reserve my open line, open forum discussions for later on in the week, but I didn't have any guests, and this weekend I just didn't feel like bugging anybody. I thought, we should just open up the phone lines and see what you guys want to talk about. So what have we talked about today? Well, let's see. Daylight savings time. We've talked about that. We talked about this 8 cents a gallon fuel tax that the state is thinking about. The legislature, they're all spun up about, we're going to kill this tax and save you $40 a year. Or they're going to change the name of the Glen Highway. Or we're going to change the legal marrying age so that you can get married. All these important things, these super important things, that instead of focusing on the PFD and all that other stuff, that they should be focusing on sorry, didn't mean to yell. But that's where we're at. That's what we've been talking about today. But what do you want to talk about? That's my question. 907-433-3150 is the Pivotel call-in line, powered by our friends at Pivotel and Satellite West. We'll let you drive the boat this morning because obviously I'm ready to steer it right into the rocks. Is that a lighthouse? Drive towards it. Because, I am so frustrated. This whole schooling thing, we got talking about the schooling and the fact that, my God, they haven't had an increase in their base student funding for 7 years. What will we do? Except for then later on they talk about that the formula hasn't changed since 2017. That's not 7 years. That's only 5. But, let's not do the math. Let's not, there's so many things that are wrong with this thing. All right, but let's go to the phones, right? Let's Grozfruba. Grozfruba. All right, let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller. Are you with me? Well, I don't know what happened there, but let's I'm going to hang up on that call and go over here. Maybe this one is. Oh, no, I know what the problem was. Sorry, caller. There we go. I have to turn up another knob. Good morning, caller. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Mikey from Fairbanks.
Mikey, what's on your mind?
Listen, I really believe all Alaskans, men, women, and children should get down to the nearest LIO, Legislative Information Office, and tell the legislature to send them their $15,000 per person. Every Alaskan, we can't depend them on emergencies or pandemics or anything. You have to get that statute. It's on the books. It belongs to Alaskans, and it's rational to pursue what does belong to you, or it's going to be stolen.
Right. I agree. I agree. Mark, thank you. That marks 2 for you today. You're done for today. Thank you for calling in. I had one other caller that I hung up on, and I apologize, callers, because I had too many buttons and knobs that I had to pull here, and I forgot to turn one all the way up. So if you want to sound off on this, and I suggest that you do, 907-433-3150. It will prevent me from ranting. Man. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Nobody wants to take on education as a whole, right? No one wants to take on education and say what we are doing, and we are spending more than any other. We're spending a tremendous. What are we spending? $17,000 for every student that's in school. Now they're quick to point out that, of course, with our geographic regions and our geographic areas, it's not nearly that much. That it's only, it's on target with everybody. The state spends more than, this is as of 2017, the state spends more than $17,800 per student. Now, that's, again, 5 years ago. The number today is even bigger. Compared to the national average of 12, we are 1/3 more than any other state out there. Oh, but geography, it's going to take more. We have to deliver education to rural communities and overall. But according to that, so now Alaska is spending 7% less than the national average per student in 2019. I love how they use all these different years to make it, it's not an apples to apples comparison. But we've got all this money that we're spending. And we continue to scrape the bottom of the barrel in scholastic achievement. I mean, here we are at the bottom in the terms of reading at the 4th grade, and one of the 5 worst states in math. I mean, the performance is horrifically poor. And yet, if we only had more money, we could make it work. Well, wait, that's not how it works. You don't just, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, what is going on? Oh, but you can't ask for us to deliver and then pay us. That's not how, there should be nothing tied to this. This should just be money because we need to be able to count on it. That's not how the world works. Let's go over to the phones. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Randy in Fairbanks.
Hello, Randy. What's on your mind?
Oh, just some boring news about me personally. I just wanted to report to you that I sent back finally my PFD from 2021, $1,114. I had procrastinated a long time about it because usually the reason I send it back is because we have a deficit, but since we have a surplus, I thought, I wonder if I should send it back. And anyway, I finally sent it back on March 4th, and in my letter to the Department of Revenue, one of the reasons I kind of cited was that I hadn't seen any serious effort to pay back the $12 billion that we sucked out of the CBR to cover all those deficits for all those years. That was kind of one reason. But also I just thought I'd read you one of my final paragraphs. I said to the Department of Revenue, I said here in my letter, I know I can't specify which projects my donated enclosed PFD check goes to, and I know it is just a tiny drop in the bucket, but I hope that some of it could go toward developing the Connect Arm Bridge and upgrading the narrow and overloaded Connect Goose Bay Road near Wasilla to a divided 4-lane highway. I don't live down there, but I think those infrastructure projects will benefit Alaskans for many years to come. Also, I hope money can be found from somewhere to make the necessary repairs and improvements to the Port of Anchorage and to Port Mackenzie. Fairbanks depends on those ports. So that paragraph was heavily influenced by things I've heard on your show,
right?
Including, anyway. So that's what I did, boring or not.
Well, no, it's great, Randy. I appreciate your stalwartness and your stick-to-itiveness, I guess, on that. I don't know as it really does anything to affect it. We even if we had a surplus this year, we're going to do something with it. We'll spend it on something. That's obviously what's going to happen because the legislators are just, they're bound and determined to spend all this money. You'll be sending that PFD back for your foreseeable future, my friend. That's what's going to happen. You're going to be sending that PFD back for years because this legislature is never going to create a surplus, not with the makeup that it has right now.
Well, by the way, I'm all for having a bigger PFD this year, more money out, because we have a surplus, and that goes in line with what I've preached about having an expansion clause built right into a new PFD statute. There should be an expansion clause that says the PFD shall be higher than whatever the base amount is if there's a surplus.
Well, yeah, but the problem is, Randy, is that they are not incentivized in any way to create a surplus. They are not incentivized in any way to rein in the spending. And if you give them even more money, which is essentially what you've advocated for in the past by allowing them to continue to raid and take the PFD, they have no incentive to curb the spending. And that's always been the problem. My argument has always been that we should starve the beast. We should starve it. We should reduce the amount of money and force them to face the fact that they have got a spending problem. But because we've got people out there who are like, meh, okay, whatever, then they just continue to spend. And like right now, they're waiting for the spring revenue forecast to come out so they can figure out how much more money they've got so they can figure out where to spend it. I mean, it's insane.
Well, as far as the incentive, that's what the whole idea of my thought on having an expansion clause. There is your incentive.
But there's no incentive for the legislator. That's the thing, Randy. There's no incentive for the legislators to save that spending. They don't give two wits about whether or not you or I get a PFD. Most of them, I mean, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but most of them don't give a crap if we get a PFD or not. If you take the money from them and shorten it out so that they have to focus on the budget because there's not enough money coming in, then they'll have to face the problem. As long as they have that huge piggy bank to draw off of, there is no sense of urgency to fix the spending in the state.
Well, yeah, but all 700,000 Alaskans want a bigger PFD, and that's where the incentive comes from. It comes from the people.
There's a huge chunk of Alaskans that want the full. There's a whole chunk of Alaskans that want the full PFD. They're not listening to them. We've seen hours of testimony with 90+% in favor of paying a statutory PFD, and they look at you and they give you the proverbial finger after the presentation and say, you poor, poor, pitiful people, you just don't understand. That's what they're doing. So you think that giving them more money is going to make them more responsible and make them more responsive to what we want. It's not going to happen.
Well, no. Like I say, an expansion clause is what is the incentive. If we have that built right in, people will look at that.
How does that incentivize them? How would an expansion clause that say we pay a larger PFD if we have a surplus, how is that going to incentivize them to create that surplus? Explain it to me.
Well, because the people seeing that expansion clause built right into the statute will point to that and say, hey, legislator, cut out this over here, cut out that over there. This is inefficient over here. Cut that out so I can get a bigger PFD.
That's what they've been saying. There's already a law in the books that say you should pay this over here. You shall pay this. It says it. And what do? They ignore the law because they know better than you, Randy. They know better than you how to spend the money. They know. Again, 4 hours of testimony that says pay this PFD. And they go, oh, well, that's all well and good, but you children should sit over here and let the adults talk. So, yeah, sure, put a statute in, Randy, that has an expansion clause and just see exactly how. I mean, again, oh, well, we're incentivized. We want to. Well, the people want a bigger PFD, so maybe we should cut our spending. That's the argument right now. How is that working out for you?
Well, what we have now is not an expansion clause, and I just now sent an email to all 60 legislators advocating for the expansion clause idea that I have, and I don't know if they'll read it or care about it, but if we could get that in, I think that would help. I think it would focus everybody on saying, Randy, where can we cut to get an expansion
Randy, clause? You're missing the point. We already have something that is just like what you're saying. It's the statutory PFD. They should pay us first and then make do with the remainder of the money. We've said that. I mean, this is essentially what you're saying. You're just saying it in a different way. Well, we need an expansion clause that says if we have a surplus, they'll pay a larger PFD. We're saying they should pay the statutory PFD, which is the larger PFD, and that they should be incentivized to make sure government runs as efficiently as possible. Instead, they're taking the PFD and spending it on government. There will be no surplus. I mean, that is there. It's just, there will be. They are not incentivized in the least to create a surplus. That's the truth of it. I hate to tell you that, but that's the truth of it, Randy. All right, we got to go. Oh, man. Blood leaking from one of my eyes. All right, we got to go here. The Michael Duke Show continues. It's your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with your phone calls right after this. Don't go anywhere.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
God love him. God love him. Nobody else will. I mean, he just doesn't get it. And I'm just wondering if it's intentional, at some point. Oh, if we just put this expansion clause in there, where if they have a surplus, then we'll get a larger dividend. That, of course, will mean that they will spend less money and do their best to get that. For the love of God. That's going to happen right now. Oh, there's a legislator who has a bill in to put an expansion clause like that into the Constitution. He also has a bill to greatly expand the public employees' retirement system. Of course he does. Because we already didn't get bit by that once before. They don't follow the statutes anyway. You're right. The people who want the full PFD don't vote. That's why they want something. Did you use like a thing or something here? No. Okay. Let's all do some deep cleansing breathing. Visualize hot black coffee flowing into your mouth. Okay. All right. It just never ends. It just, you just can't fix it. I love Randy to death. I admire his stalwart determination to do the right thing as he sees it. There's a guy that's willing to put his money where his mouth is. More than many people I know on my end of the fence. But you can lead the horse to water, but you just can't make him drink. You can't make him see what's going on. And the costs just keep going up. All right. What else? Last place I would have sent the money back to is the state. Better off handing out $100 bills to local charities, people, or even some other causes. Never back to those who stole it. The Legicritters found out long ago it's easier to bribe people with programs. The greed! The greed!
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me. I just don't fathom it.
Yep. I just don't fathom it. The greed that people would want their own money. That people would want to choose their own destinies and self-determination, even if they just want to spend it on big screen TVs and vacations to Hawaii, as some people have asserted. You know what? It's their money. I don't care if they want to go do hookers and blow with it. It doesn't matter to me because it's none of my business. It's none of my business. But don't worry. They know better than you. No. Poor, pitiful children. Let the grown-ups talk. We're going to work this out for you, and you'll be happy with it. Or else. Right? I mean, that's what we're faced with, right? You'll be happy with it or off with your head. Poor pitiful morons. If you only knew. If we only knew what we knew. If you only knew what we knew, you would know that we are anointed by God from on high to tell you how you should spend your money. Okay, all right. I'm trying to calm down a little bit. It's Monday. Daylight savings time. Could die tomorrow. Don't know. All right. People are listing off all the stuff and what it costs in town. I know stuff's gotten expensive, man. You don't have to tell me $5.59 a gallon for gas. Yeehaw. Let's jump back into it. The Michael Dukes Show, Common Sense Radio. Here we go. All right. And now we've been talking about the prices stuff. You've been watching the food prices? I mean, what's it cost for a dozen eggs now, right? And a pound of bacon? That's up to like $9 or $10 a pound now instead of, $7? Butter, gasoline. Oh, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better from here. But don't worry, I'm sure the legislature will swoop in and save us with some other program because they have been anointed by God to tell us exactly how we should spend our money. And don't you dare question them. Because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you question them, if you question them, you question yourselves, my friend.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me. I just don't fathom it.
Just don't fathom it. How could you be so greedy? How could you want a bill that would put money in the hands of Alaskans?
That was just BS.
I know, Bert Stedman. I know that it is just, I know that it's just Bert Stedman. Because, why? Because they know better than you. That's the crux of this whole thing. I mean, am I wrong? If I'm wrong, dial me up and tell me how. 907-433-3150. The lines are open. You can just call out and tell me how I'm wrong. That is the crux of this whole argument, is that somehow our elected officials, I won't even call them leaders, because there ain't no leadership going on in there right now. Our elected officials are telling us with their deeds, but more importantly, even with the words that are coming out of their mouth, that somehow, some way, they know better than us on how to spend this. Andy Josephson, 4 hours of testimony. People waiting on the phones for hours to have their say. 90% of them say, pay the full PFD. And he goes on about how, well, it's really nice that you guys are all here and you've sounded off and everything. But, we understand this problem better. Paul Seaton, we know this problem better than you. And while we appreciate your testimony, just go pound sand. I mean, that's the problem. And the irony, by the way, of a multi-million-dollar, of a millionaire who makes over $1.2 million a year telling us that we, the small people, are greedy because we want them to follow the law and pay the statutory PFD and live within their means? Oh, the irony of that is just astonishing. I mean, the greed and the entitlement. Astonishing. But, I mean, again, it's just a microcosm of what we're facing with all of our elected officials. I mean, I shouldn't say all, because there are a few in there who are fighting for this valiantly. I'm sure they feel like Don Quixote tilting at that windmill one more time, Rocinante. Let us dive once more into the breach against this multi-limbed beast, and we are sure to be victorious. Boom. Knocked right on our asses again. Every time. Right out of the saddle. Boom. I mean, this is just... This is the battle we fight. And we keep sending the same group of people back over and over again. We change out a few of them. I mean, we've changed out a full third of the legislature. But we've got those ones that are in there, the hangers-on, the ones that they've got it locked like Flynn, and they know how to work them parliamentary procedures, baby. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they know how to work that. And so they're holding the rest of the legislature hostage. I mean, that argument about how they had 50 legislators lined up to support the fiscal policy working group plan, and you had one legislator that stumble blocked the whole thing. It's disheartening. Disheartening, to say the least. And now we're faced with an election season with a ton of unknowns. We got the jungle primary, and we've got a handful of candidates for these offices, and we don't know how the ranked choice voting is going to be perceived, how it's going to be executed by the people, who more than likely don't understand it. Because let's face it, how many of us actually understand all the intricacies and the bells and whistles of it? Not much. I mean, we've had experts on the program. I read most of the 36 pages of changes that were coming on there, and I still don't understand it completely. How is the average person who doesn't ever turn on the radio or listen to politics or even they do their civic duty once a year when they climb behind the ballot box and they throw their vote and they're like, I've done my duty. What are they going to do when the ranked choice voting thing is slapped down in front of them? What are their choices going to be? How is that going to affect us? We don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm predicting a total train wreck. I'm just, this is like where the guy says, hold my beer, you ain't going to believe this. That's what I'm predicting right now. The worst part of this whole thing is that we know that we're in trouble. Now, maybe not for the long term, because remember now they're predicting that the permanent fund itself is going to go up over $100 million a year, or $100 billion in valuation, and that every year we'll be able to draw enough with that 5% draw or 4% or 4.5%. We'll be able to draw enough that the state government can live on it, and it'll be fine. Our revenue problems will be solved in, 5 or 6 years. But what happens in the interim? And of course, this whole thing comes back to, are we spending more money than we're taking in? Yes. And are we not following the law? Yes. Then what is the problem? Why are we focusing on all this other crap if we're not going to focus on the problem at hand? Well, because the powers that be that are in the legislature right now, the business as usual crowd, the enshrined club, the greed and entitlement crowd, don't want it to happen. They don't want it to happen. That's the bottom line. All right, back to the phones. Let's see what you have to say here before I blow a blood vessel. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Kathy from Soldotna.
Hello, Kathy from Soldotna.
Hey, I just want to share that Kelly Shavaka spoke at Kenai New Life on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And you can go on Facebook and listen to her message. It was super good. And so I'm just encouraging people to go to Kenai New Life and listen to that. And it was very, very good. And, I just encourage you to have Charlie and Edie Grunwell on your phone, to listen to them again,
sure.
To see what Edie has at least, I mean, we've heard from Charlie, but it'd be nice to hear from Edie. I think she's really excited, and I'm excited for her. And, and then maybe you can share what you have coming up on your, what's coming up this week on the people that you've invited onto your show.
Sure. I will do that. I have invited Edie onto the program. I'm hoping to have her on this week for sure. We know Mike Shower is going to be here,
good.
And also Jonathan Christ-Tompkins is supposed to be on the program this week as well to discuss the fiscal policy working group and their plan. So that's kind of what we have lined up so far, and of course Brad Keithley and Chris Story tomorrow. So hoping that if all those guests end up here, we'll be pretty much full up for the rest of the week. So working on that right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just thought, I would encourage you because I was like, well, I couldn't get that 10 minutes back, like Dr. Phil would say, on one of those two, But anyway, so.
Are you saying that my rantiness is killing your spirit? Is that what you're saying there?
Well, some of the people that were on there about giving their dividend back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I mean, they would have had more fun by giving out $100 bills in town.
Yeah, well,
that would have been way funner.
I think they could. Well, they could have definitely made more of a. Definitely could have made more of a difference, right? I mean, you could make a difference in somebody's life if you hand them a $100 bill. If you walk down to the homeless shelter and handed out some $100 bills, you could have done a much better job than giving it back to the state. What's the state going to do with it? Spend it on everything else?
Right.
Yeah.
I know. I have one friend who gave it back, but her daughter had died and she didn't have the will up to speed, and so she just sent it back, But that, I can kind of see that. But, he would have had a lot of fun. I mean, that would have been fun for me, just to hand out the $100 bills. And even watching him hand out the $100.
I know. That'd have been good. Grab the popcorn, see how it goes, and a handkerchief. It would have been fantastic. All right. Well, Karen, thank you so much thank you for calling in this morning. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being part of the program. 433-3150, 907-433-3150, the Pivotel call-in line powered by our friends at Pivotel and Satellite West. Speaking of Satellite West, they're also helping one of our other sponsors here on the program, and that is the Bivy Stick. What is a Bivy Stick, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Bivy Stick is an SBD, a short burst data device, which is a fancy way of saying it tethers your cell phone to the Iridium satellite system. It's a little tiny device. It's about half the size of your cell phone. You tether it with Bluetooth to your phone. You download the app. And then when you're out anywhere in the world, anywhere that you could see the sky, you can send text messages. You can send emails to your friends, relatives, neighbors, people that you need to keep in contact with. If you're out hunting or fishing or hiking or biking or snow machining, you can be assured that you are always in contact and always ready. It's got a little button on it that's got the secure check-in, meaning that you're okay. And when you mash that button, it sends out an email to whoever you've specified with a message that says, I'm okay, and here's my location. And it's got a little red button on it for emergencies that I've fallen and my snow machine's on top of me. Well, guess what? It gives you the location and it tells people where you are. Plus, of course, you can just write a text message or write an email. Plus, you can check the weather. Regular weather forecast, aviation forecast, marine forecast, and it's only $199. I mean, why would you? If you have got a go bag, if you've got an emergency bag, this is the perfect thing for that emergency bag. A disaster, right? An earthquake. We just had an earthquake on Saturday. It wasn't the 2018 earthquake, but it was a shaker. What if you had another one like 2018 and it brought more of the cell towers down, or the congestion on the cell towers was so tough you couldn't get through? Well, guess what? With a Bivy Stick, it doesn't matter. You could send text messages to people and it will go through on the system. You could send emails and tell people where you're at. Throw it in your glove box. Put it in your coat pocket. Put it in your little bag there on the top of your snow machine cowling when you're out there out in the mountains where nobody can reach you and your cell phone doesn't work. It'll go 5 days of continuous usage at 10-minute tracking. 10 minutes, it drops a pin every 10 minutes to tell your friends where you are. And they're always rolling out new features. They got a new feature called Group Track we're going to talk about here in the future that is absolutely amazing. And again, $199, no activation fees, rollovers, everything else. So I don't care if you are in a car or a boat or an ATV or a plane, snow machine, train, submarine, hang glider. It doesn't matter. You should have one of these in your pocket, in your go bag, in your emergency kit. And at $199, can you afford not to? I've got one. My wife's got one. This is what you need to have, the Bivy Stick. Check it out at your local dealer. Arctic Fire and Safety in Fairbanks, South Central Radar on the Spit in Homer, Radar Alaska in Kodiak, Communications North in Seward, Lundy Marine Electronics in Dutch Harbor, and your safe and sound locations in Wasilla, Soldotna, or Anchorage. All right. We're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we're going to continue with your phone calls. Lines are open right now. All 4 lines. Stack them and rack them. Let's go. Get deep on the queue here. 433-3150, the Pivotel call-in line. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Brought to you by your friends at Bivy Stick. Go to satellitewest.com to find out more. Here we go. Back with more right after this.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Dukes Show.
My grandson was punished for getting his work done too quick. Let's see. I like it when you rant. Saves me from blowing a gasket. I know, but it makes me want to blow a gasket. That's the problem. Went to their event in Friday on Wasilla. A very common sense approach for state government gives me hope. I don't know what Terry's talking about there. Whose event? I don't remember. Was I talking about something? We had over 100 people say a couple dozen people. Oh, we have over 150 people at something, and they say a couple dozen people. I know. I would be at the PFD rally and show up and not even show everyone, and they would interview people, but just cut it all up. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Let's see. You could thank Bill Walker for the PFD problems now. Absolutely, Christopher. It's directly at his feet. I like Shakespearean Michael Monday. Is that what it is? When I get all Shakespearean, to be or not to be, that is the question. Slightly off topic. I've watched Greed and Entitlement on the news and talked about it with others, but until a few weeks ago, I had not met anyone in person who displays such behaviors. I had a young man come in to apply to run our spare room, and he's from Puerto Rico, and I was incredibly shocked and disappointed at his behavior. He literally argued everything. I now understand what true entitlement looks like. Pray for the new generation. No. Charlie Pierce and Edie. Oh, Terry was talking about going and seeing Charlie Pierce and Edie. Yeah, no, we're gonna try and get Edie Grunwald on the program this week, and see what she has to say. And like I said, hopefully we're gonna have Mike Shower on. I think it's going to be Thursday instead of Wednesday, and then Jonathan Christ Tompkins, who is not normally, he's one of the more progressive members of the establishment, but he said he'd be willing to come on and talk with us about the fiscal policy working group, which I'd like to hear. I want to get his take on it. Maybe it'd be fun to have him on from time to time, and we could spar gently. Don't want to hurt anybody. Don't want to hurt anybody. Okay. Reeser frogs go gay as part of America's contaminated water. Seriously. Sean, are you really giving me the reasons why the gay frogs in the water? Huh? Huh? What? Freaking fluoride in the water turning the frogs gay. That's what it is. Drummond, Story, Zulkowski, and Hopkins want to hire 10 reading specialists. These specialists are to teach teachers how to teach reading. My question is, why are we paying teachers who can't teach? Yeah, what about using the program that already worked in other states, like this Read by 9 thing that the senators are talking about? Why aren't we focusing on that? Right? What's the question there? I think I scared everybody off with my rant. Don't have any more phone calls. Putin is seeking military equipment from China. Beijing emerging as the winner of the war. Interesting. Kremlin chaos. All right. Well, we'll see what's going on. Close that. I've covered some of these stories. I knew that as soon as I got onto the whole schooling thing that I was going to lose my mind because it's just such a pet peeve of mine. Such a pet peeve. We just continue to pour money down this endless rabbit hole. And they keep saying, oh, this time we'll really do something. No, this time we'll really do something. We'll move that needle. Just give us more money and we'll move the needle this time. And yet you're continuing to do exactly the same things. You're asking for money to prop up the systems that right now are not serving us. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me how that is smart. Right? Tell me. How does that work? Why won't you invite Senator Reinbold or Representative Eastman on? They've both been on the program, Herman. They've both been on the program. I've just read Thinking as a Science. Good book, says Timothy. I'll have to look it up, Timothy. Drop me a link in the Common Sense Core page, will you? I'll go take a look at it, see if I can find some time to share my brain out. Although I'll be honest with you, any spare time I've had lately has been hanging out with my wife, watching movies, and just kind of decompressing, because damn. Yo, I've been there. I've been there, done that. Had them both on the program. All right, we're going to continue on here. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like and share. Subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it. Well, I think I scared everybody away with my rant. Now nobody wants to call and engage with me because I think I don't know if they're afraid that I'm going to blow up on them and chew them up or whatever. But I'm not that scary. Ask my wife. She'll tell you I'm not that scary. I'm a big, lovable teddy bear. That's what I am. Phone lines are open right now, 907-433-3150 on the Pivotel call-in line. I'd love to hear what you have to say about, pretty much anything. We're going to open forum the last segment here. I knew as soon as the topic was going to be schooling today that I was going to get spun up because it is my pet peeve, my biggest pet peeve in state government spending is the education system. So I knew that was going to be a problem. I knew it was going to get spun up. So I apologize for all that stuff. But, you know, I get so irritated when we get stuck on stupid. And that's where we're at. Stuck on stupid. I got a couple recommendations. Somebody recommended a book to me in the chat room, and I said I was going to look into it. And I said when I get some spare time. But you know what? You know what I've been doing with my spare time more than anything else lately? I mean, I suppose I could be reading another good book to improve my brain or whatever, but all my spare time right now has been spent with my wife or my kids, hanging out, watching movies, playing D&D, you know, talking about life. I don't know, unplugging from everything, turning off the news, yep, watching movies, letting the world go by. I found that to be more edifying than anything else that I could possibly have done. Oh, man. Oof. All right, I will... phone lines are open. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. Can you explain the common sense core to the newbies, says Brian. You know what? We haven't talked about the core in a while. The common sense core, for those of you who don't know what that is kind of like a fan club and a you know, mastermind all put together. It's a fan club for the show, and you can join it by going over to my website at michaeldukeshow.com and clicking on the Join the Core button. And there's varying levels. It takes you over to Patreon, and there's varying levels of supporting the show from, you know, $3 a month to 30 to 40 to 100, you know, whatever. How much, whatever you think this show is worth. And I know some of you are like, I'm never going over there because I don't think this show is worth anything. But even for a cup of coffee's worth of money a month, you do get access to things like the Common Sense Core Facebook page, which is a private Facebook group of core members, and we share things. We talk about different issues. We discuss and we mock mercilessly some people. No, I'm just, you know, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff going on in that private little group, and it's a good way to get access to it. And, of course, it helps support the show, puts a little coffee in my cup and shoes on my kids. Don't you care about the children? Is the children you care about putting shoes on my kids' feet? I mean, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So go on out to the Common Sense Core. There's also some other rewards. You can get Beard Curler coffee. You can get T-shirts and mugs. I've done all kinds of stuff over the last couple of years here. But I would love to have you guys participate and be part of the Common Sense Core. That's what we call our group. It's the Cool Kids Club. Go on out to michaeldukeshow.com and click on Join the Core if you would like to be part of that and hang out with me and Timothy and all the cool kids out there on the Common Sense Core page. All right. Here's what we got going on. Phone calls. Let's jump over to it here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello. Hi. This is Tim from Homer.
Hello, Tim.
And hello. Hey. I know you were talking about the school systems, and one thing that I think is kind of weird is how they build all these schools with flat roofs. Here in Alaska, I don't understand why they do that. I mean, they got to be replaced every couple of years, and it's millions of dollars. You'd think that they'd put pitched roofs on these schools, especially here in Alaska. And another thing I was wondering, or thinking about too, you know how they have the ranked choice voting stuff. And
right.
I'm wondering if the way they got that stuff to be put through is, you know, people signing these petitions. You know, you know how you have people standing out front of grocery stores and stuff. And I'm wondering if they got that passed and just, you know, not really telling people what exactly they're signing. You know, getting people to sign stuff and not actually telling them what they're signing. You know.
And
anyway, I just want to call in and. Yeah.
Well, wait a second, Tim. What are they signing? I mean, I guess I don't understand what you're saying with that. I mean, that they're signing what kind of agreement?
You know how down here there's been people. I mean, here in a year or two ago, there's people. You know, getting people to sign petitions.
Sure.
And I noticed that there was one guy that was out, and he was saying that to get people to be able to get in office that aren't big campaign people.
Right.
To make it fair so people can get on the ballot that aren't big, campaign people. And I wonder if that is just a way, not actually explaining that that's just maybe ranked choice voting. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know.
He may have been describing ranked choice voting. Maybe that's one way to describe it. But, political candidates, if they are not a member of a political party, they did have to go out and get signatures. If they weren't part of some party, they did have to get signatures to get on the ballot. So it may have been something as simple as that. I mean, it may have been his way of explaining ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
But I think because that was...
Yeah, see, that's what I was wondering.
Well, the vote was last year, and they already had the petition in hand early last year. So if he was out there last year, that was already on the ballot. So he wouldn't have been collecting signatures for that. I'm assuming it would have been for a candidate.
Okay, yeah, maybe it was maybe before last year. But I was just thinking, what if people could, maybe they could be getting signatures and not really totally explaining.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that happens.
And getting, and that makes me think, I wouldn't want to be signing things because you could actually be signing up for something and they're not explaining the.
That's why I would never trust anybody, Tim, who just said, this is what it is, please sign. I would read it. I mean, they have to have a copy of what you're signing right there in front of you. So you're right. He could have been, but then people would have to read it to understand it. And so that's on them. If they signed without reading what they were agreeing to, you can't fix that kind of stupid. It is what it is. But you very well could be right.
Yeah, that'd be a bummer if they just had what you're reading, and then there's other stuff that's involved, like ranked choice voting, and you sign up for it even though it's not on what you read. But I mean, that would be a bad deal. But I just wanted to. Oh, and then the flat roof deal. I think that's really weird how they do that.
Oh yeah, I've never understood that. I've never understood. I've never understood why we're building buildings.
Yeah, they got to be replaced every 5 years. They got to rip it down, rip it off, and redo it every 5 years. I know it's down here anyway, and it seems like there's a lot of flat roofs everywhere. Somebody's making millions of dollars every 5 years.
Maybe
you know what I mean?
You know what they call that? You know what they call that, Tim? They call that job security. I think that's what they call that. Some engineer said, let's put this flat roof. I don't know if that's what they really do, but it seems that way. I'm agreeing with you on that. All right, thank you for your call, my friend. I appreciate it. Folks, we are out of time. Brad Keithley, Chris Story tomorrow. Be kind to one another, will you? Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, well, man, that was a barn burner. Did not expect to get quite so wound up, but, I guess sometimes if you can't motivate, you irritate. That's what I'm here to do, irritate for you. Thank you for coming in and joining us. I really appreciate each and every one of you coming in every morning. If you would, a cup of coffee's worth, right? The Common Sense Corps, a cup of coffee's worth. Every month, right here. Where is it? Right there. Right there. Just go out to patreon.com/Michael Duke Show or go to michaeldukeshow.com and click on Join the Corps. You could help support us for as little as, I think, $3 a month or $4 a month, something like that. It's good stuff. My friends, we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.